Hey gang, I'm in Stickney, Illinois today, and I am with Renee and Cheryl, and we are going to, this is Renee and Cheryl, by the way. Say hi.
Hey.
Say hi to the channel.
Hey.
And we are all going to visit some graves of the family. Now, Cheryl and Renee are cousins, and they have their fathers, well, they have 40 family members here, but we're going to focus, we'll see what we can get in, but we have your father, we have your grandfather, and then a shared grandfather who were all or most vets in World War I, World War II, and then we're going to visit the graves of the babies and some of the kids that did not survive. And as a point of conversation, Renee and Cheryl were the first, and you know, a lot of babies born and death, and that was, I don't want to say common, but it happened a lot. And you guys are really the first survivors of the family line. So, okay, we're going to jump in the car and then we'll turn the camera back on. How's it sound?
Good.
All right. I see American flags. There we go. All right, so we have Robert D. and Jeanette M. Is it Jeanette?
Yep, Jeanette. Mm-hmm.
All right, let me come from this side so we don't have Mr. Shadow. There we go. All right, we have Robert D., who passed in 2010. He's born in 1922, and Jeanette is still alive. Tell me about Robert.
Well,
U.S. Navy, I see.
U.S. Navy, and he immigrated here with his parents from Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
They came after World War I, when a lot of people left Scotland and came to America. And then they came to this area because Cicero had so many jobs, a lot of factories, a lot of work. So and then other people who had came before them, then they would sponsor them as friends and relatives.
Right.
So that's how everybody ended up in this area here. And so he had his mom, his dad, sister, and him immigrated here. Now later he had another sister after they moved here.
Okay.
And like I said, he lived right here in Cicero, went to Lincoln School and then Morton High School. And he quit high school at 17 to go to World War II. And during World War II, he was in the Navy.
Right.
On the SSGO Squire. And I know that he went enough miles that it equaled 3 times around the world.
3 times around the world. Wow, that is a lot of sailing.
A lot of sailing for a young man.
Okay, well, and we hope Robert's resting in peace, and Jeanette is how old now? 96?
92.
92.
Yeah.
And hopefully Jeanette stays healthy. All right, we're gonna move on, and where are we going now?
Then we do need to get in the car to go to the grandparents. A grandpa.
Okay, let's go. A lot of veterans here, huh?
We're not even in the veterans section.
Yeah.
So this is my grandfather and my grandmother.
Okay. So we have George Murray and Robina M. Murray. And George was born in 1896 and passed in 1957, which was 2 years before I was born.
Before I was born too.
Wow. What a beautiful stone. It's almost like an open book.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about George and Robina.
Well, they were, like I said, they lived in Scotland.
Right.
And they had the 2 children. George was in World War II
Okay.
with World War One
World War One.
with the Scottish Regiment,
Right.
and then later with the Black Watch.
Okay.
He was wounded in the knee and was released from service at that time. And then after World War One, that's when they immigrated here to Cicero
Okay.
with the 2 kids. And
And it was Edinburgh
yeah,
where they were from?
around
Okay.
there. And so, yeah, that's. I know something cute about Robina, my grandma, because she cooked really well.
She cooked really well?
She cooked really good food, and it was like kolachkis and
Kolachkis?
bread dumplings
Okay.
and all of this. And I'm like, where did you learn to cook? And she told me when she first immigrated here, she thought she was learning to cook American,
Right.
but they were actually from Czech.
Ah.
So it was in Cicero neighborhood. So that's
Wow.
where she learned to cook. It's kind of
That is great. Do you know what year they emigrated?
1923.
1923.
And George came 6 months earlier, and then she came with the 2 kids 6 months later.
And they were married already, or they had their family, and then they took the chance and came
Correct.
over. 1920, roaring 20s.
Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, so I have pictures of them in there.
Yeah, we're going to include
roaring-
pictures.
They're roaring 20 outfit.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Love it.
So,
How are these graves related?
oh, these are Robina.
Okay.
These are her. This is her family. This is
Okay.
her brother, like her brother David and William and
Okay,
sister
I'm going
Ina.
to step over here. So here's more family members.
Yeah.
Great. And I see flags, so all fought in World War II. World War I, George, right, you said?
Yeah, World War One.
And here we see the Masons, the Mason symbol. And I'm not sure, Jane has a star, OES it looks like it says.
Yeah, the Eastern Star.
The Eastern Star, what does that mean?
It's like the woman's Mason.
The woman
For the women,
Mason.
Yes,
Yeah.
and you
Okay.
notice David had it too.
Yeah.
And although William doesn't have an ending on his
He
death
has
date,
ended.
Oh, William?
right here.
No,
William-
we
William-
never put the
William
date
was
on.
William
born in
has,
1885.
Renee goes, William has ended.
He truly is ended,
Even though there's no death date.
even though there's no death date.
We'll take care of that. Faces of the Forgotten. We'll get a carver out here.
And then Bob's sister is over here.
Okay. Is that car or walking?
No, I
Oh.
don't think we're gonna go there.
Yeah. Well,
Back in the
just to
car?
say she's buried in the mausoleum right here.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, you can just look over there.
Yeah,
There
so
she is.
There are 40, we have 40 family members out here, gang. Those are some outdoor crypts, mausoleums, which are beautiful. Okay, let's go to our next location.
Andrew Hoffman, he actually is our great-grandfather.
Okay.
Ours. So he is the father and mother of our grandmother.
Okay.
And actually, Andrew was from Bloomington, Illinois.
Oh, okay.
That's where they had immigrated to, his family.
Okay.
And then he met Margaret, and they were letter writing. I've seen a lot of the letters.
Oh, wow.
And then they got together and moved here to Cicero.
Okay.
And they ended up having 10 children.
10
So,
children.
7
Wow.
are live and 3 are here in the baby section.
Okay.
But yeah, that's how our grandmother.
That's how
is
you're
one of those
related.
7.
And tell them the story about Maggie Margaret, that they had 10 children, 7 survived, and she passed on Mother's Day when she was just, what, in her 50s, Renee?
Yeah.
We just read that.
Oh.
Yeah, she was young.
She was young.
So she had left the 7 kids and her husband. And then 1 year later, you see, he died of a heart attack. And
Okay.
so left all this.
Andrew.
Yeah.
Andrew, right.
Yeah, so. And
Wow.
and Andrew was not in.
Wait a minute.
He
You
was-
said he died one day later?
One year.
1 year later.
1 year
Yeah.
later. But
1932. Yeah, 1931.
She
Okay.
died on Mother's Day, and he died 1 year later.
Did he die of heartbreak or?
They called it a heart attack. So,
Yeah. Well, there you go.
And he was left with 7 kids. So
You hear that so often, right?
yeah.
And I see that on the dates of stones many times. The wife goes, the husband goes, and vice versa.
Right.
Wow.
Usually within, yeah.
So, and if I can get this hopefully right, Andrew was not in the military. He was just because that's not the time he would be in the military.
Okay.
But
Right.
his father was in the Civil War.
His father was in the Civil
and his
War.
grandfather
Wow.
was in the American Revolution.
Wow.
He was the longest living survivor at 101 years old is when he died.
Of the American
Revolution. And that grave is down in
1776.
We
Bloomington.
visited
Yeah.
those graves in Bloomington.
Now we're talking some history.
Yeah.
Wow. Father Andrew. Okay, let's go to our next. That's fantastic.
For her parents.
All right, there's Herman. Herman W. Knapp, Illinois. Yeah, it's World War II, March. He was born in 1908 in March, and April 22nd, 1964. And buried next to him is Jenny Knapp. Loved wife and mother, June 27, 1909 to March 31st, 1986. Okay, so World War II, again, what do we know about Herman?
Well, we know that he was 34 years old when he was drafted into World War II. So he was married, had 3 daughters, and was still drafted.
Okay.
And then that
Wow.
left her with 3 kids at home, and she had never worked. She was a mother and took care of the kids and wife. So when he was drafted and had to leave, then she had to go to work. So she worked in the torpedo factory in Franklin
Wow.
Park.
So like
Making torpedoes.
Rosie the Riveter,
Yeah.
if you will.
So
That's great.
That's what she had to do to.
That is fantastic. Chipping in the war effort, Jenny was. Okay.
And Jenny was a grandma that Renee and I both knew well because
Right.
she didn't pass until 86, whereas our grandfather passed when we were pretty little.
Okay. And Herman came back okay from the war, obviously.
He did come back okay from
1964.
the war. But when he did come back, he worked for a paint company here in the Chicago area.
Okay.
And he cleaned the paint, the big
Vats,
drums, vats of, he'd have to clean those.
Oh.
And that was before the EPA was around.
So he probably got
It was very
some
bad.
lung because I see
It was very
he
bad.
passed, he was only in his 50s.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it was about 54 or so.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was
yeah, only in his early to mid 50s. Look at that.
yeah.
So was it a lung problem? That's
It was, when you read the reports, it's like ulcers were all inside.
oh,
Everywhere.
so it's from the paint.
It
Yeah.
was from the paint. Because they didn't wear protective gear, or, they just
Okay.
didn't know.
Well, as with all, I'm going to say thank you for your service, and we can say that for Herman and for Jenny here to help us get through. It was a very tough time for our country and for the world. They really did their part and sacrificed so much. So rest in peace.
And here's Uncle Irv, actually, is
Okay.
here too. This is Uncle Irv and Aunt Anna Mae.
Okay. Oh, we got a
And-
picture on the grave too.
And remember how our mothers are sisters?
Right.
Then this is the 3rd sister.
Okay.
So that's how that comes about. And Uncle Irv, he also spent time in World War II.
Okay.
And he was in the Pacific, in the
He
Army.
was. Wow. Yeah, I see World War II.
Yeah.
Fighting against the Japanese. Boy, those were tough times.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of background on, well, of course, I'm not saying I served or anything, I'm too young anyway, but just history. I'm really done a lot of study of World War II history, especially both theaters, but man, the Pacific Theater, that was really tough.
And if you notice on them too, they died within a year of each other.
Yeah, oh yeah, look at
They
that.
were
So,
sweethearts.
They were sweethearts.
so Anna Mae died and Irving died
Yeah.
the next year.
Yeah.
So she died in November, and it wasn't 6 months later or so that he passed away.
Yeah.
It
and
wasn't long.
that- Same thing. Definitely a broken heart because they were two peas in a pod.
And here it says, together forever. Together forever. Okay. Well, rest in peace. Where to next?
Cheryl's other grandfather is right over here. I could tell you a little bit about him, but I have to read it off my phone.
That's
right
okay. No, that's legal.
there. Okay. Because I wrote it down, but
That's okay.
So this is my grandfather, Henry Ashworth.
Okay.
And you can see he was a Mason too, because he has the
Yes,
same
there's
thing
the
on his
Mason
grave.
sign, 1894 to 1983. So he lived many years.
He did. I knew him well. I knew of him well.
And then Marie is his wife?
Marie is his wife,
Okay.
and she has an Eastern Star on her grave
Same
as
thing.
well.
Yeah, look at that. April 8th, 1900 to December, right at the end before Christmas, 1966.
What I remember about that is I was 9 years old when she passed, and you said it was at Christmas, and I had to decide between going to my school Christmas party or to my grandma's funeral.
Oh,
for a
and at that
9-year-old,
age, you're
that's
like,
a tough call, but I went to her funeral,
yeah.
and I remember her well.
What do you remember? Anything about her? Was she nice?
Yeah. Yes, she was. We would go over to their house, and they always had these two, kind of like lazy boy chairs, and they'd
Right.
sit in them.
They
and
both
then-
sit in each one.
Yeah, they'd sit in them, and then my grandpa he'd have his pipe, and that was in the middle of them.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Now, Henry was much, I don't want to say much older, but he was 6 years
yeah,
older.
that's not too much.
No, that's not too much.
Yeah.
But he died much later.
yeah, he lived much longer.
Yeah,
which is
he was-
kind
Yeah,
of different.
he died in 1983.
And one of my daughter's middle name is Marie, after my grandma
Okay.
Ashworth, because I remember her.
So what I know about Henry's service was that, well, he immigrated here to the U.S. in
Okay.
1912.
From England.
Okay.
Yes, from England. And during World War II, Henry joined the 48th Highlanders, which was a Scottish division of the Canadian Army, because he was not a U.S. citizen yet. And then he immigrated here to Cicero, met his wife, where they both worked at Westinghouse.
Okay.
And they had 3 kids, and he ended up being a train engineer. Or conductor, sorry.
Oh, he was a
Conductor.
train conductor. Was he on the L, or was he on the
No,
railroad?
He
was
worked at the
Chicago-
CB&Q
Yeah.
Railroad.
Yeah.
CB&Q.
So my family, the Ashworth family,
Right.
as far as the boys, were all somehow involved with railroad. And when
Wow.
my grandfather came here to go to Cicero,
Right.
his ultimate goal was to go to Australia,
Okay.
but then he ended up meeting my grandmother, and that kind of completed that. So then. he
And
ended up
was it
staying
you who told me that you have family at Woodlawn,
Yes, we both
here.
You both do?
Yeah.
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 which is where Showman's Rest is?
Yeah,
that
correct.
famous,
That's where-
the circus troupe
If
That,
we're not buried here, we're buried at Woodlawn.
at Woodlawn. And by the way, I should mention that Marlon Lopez, who we did an episode here last year, is buried right over there. She's the mother who had her baby taken from her while she was alive by a mother-daughter who are going to trial right now. Okay, let's,
So then over
One more
here,
right here.
okay,
Sorry, but this is
that's okay.
this is Cheryl's dad. So
Oh
that
yeah,
was-
let's make sure there's the Ashworth name I see.
yes, and if you look closely at the grave, you'll see the train.
Oh, look at that. For sure. So we have Albert Wayne and Marguerite.
Knapp, which
Knapp.
was Jenny Knapp and Herman Knapp's youngest daughter.
Right.
So-
Jeanette is their oldest daughter, who is
So
Renee.
Marguerite is still alive, and
Yes.
I'm going to keep the camera off her name because her birth date's there. I don't want to.
So the reason we chose for my dad the train, obviously, because he was a train guy, and he always had, he had a big train layout in his basement, and the
Right.
grandkids would come. And then he loved red roses too,
Yeah.
so we had to put a rose up there
Oh,
for
that's
him.
the rose. Okay.
And then also his
And then we have the
service.
seal
Yeah, his seal from service.
for
From
his
the
service
Korean
here.
War. He was in the
And that's from the Korean War,
He
right?
was in the Korean
because he
War.
was born in 1931.
Right, yeah.
And do you know anything about his Korean War experience? Was
All I know is that one of his best friends was killed when he was over there, and it was very traumatic for him.
oh,
And it's kind of funny when him and Uncle Herb would get together and talk
Right.
war stories. You don't realize what a huge part of that was of their
Oh,
life.
it's a
you know?
brotherhood, yeah.
It's a brotherhood. Exactly.
it is totally a brotherhood.
Yeah, and it was kind of fun to eavesdrop and listen to what.
Oh yeah,
what they
yeah.
said.
There's no greater bond.
Yeah.
They say. Is this so? Now we are at the area where the babies are from the family,
Right.
and I see 3 stones. Right.
We see 3 stones.
I'll start with Thomas.
So this is Thomas Ashworth, and he would be the son of Henry Ashworth's middle son, James.
Okay. And he died in 1956
He
in
died
August.
in 1956, and a year later they had twin girls.
Okay, and they survived.
They survived.
They
They're-
did survive.
Yeah, they're my
Now
age.
yeah.
Okay. And then we have Cynthia here.
So Cynthia Berge is the first daughter of Anime and Irv Berge,
One who had the picture on the.
one who had the
Right.
picture on the grave.
That would
Right.
be their first daughter.
That's their first child.
Right.
And that was almost a year later, I see, from when Thomas died. He died in August 56, so less than a year later.
And we had another baby pass
had
in the
another
family,
baby
and she
passed
lived
away.
only a few days.
So these all would be cousins, basically.
Cousins, right? And then there's Eric here.
And then this is Eric Ashworth.
So 1, 2, 3. This is 1958 now.
Right.
And it's in fall, just over a year later. Eric passes, and he lives for 2 days or so.
He was the only son of Henry Ashworth, who was the oldest son of my grandfather's grave that we saw over there.
Okay.
And in
Wow.
between these two, I was born.
Okay. Right in between those two
In
here.
between Cynthia and Eric, because I was born in October,
Right.
and then Renee would have been born
A month after.
a month
Eric.
after Eric was born.
Okay.
And then
So
we have
this would be all cousins.
this would be all these cousins, right? And then
Okay.
we have other cousins that's like a year after that. So it's like
Then everyone kind of survived.
yeah.
Right.
Then after
Yeah.
that, so
It
I
was just this lot.
And no, you don't really know. It was just a childbirth. They just didn't.
Right.
It wasn't a disease or
No.
anything like
No.
you hear about it.
No.
Eric supposedly he was taken by C-section, and it was
Ah,
too early for him to be taken.
right.
So and that was
So just complications in
yes,
childbirth,
yes,
if you will.
they were none of them passed because of a disease.
And medicine back then it wasn't what it was
Completely
today,
Right.
and it's the way it is. Well, I want to
So-
thank you for sharing your family stories and all the history, and really it's a private thing, and to share it with me and with everybody, I really appreciate it, because I know people watching are really going to appreciate hearing about your family, and they need to be remembered.
They do.
And I think after I'm gone, and then after you're gone,
Yep.
hopefully this video will endure, so that hopefully somebody will do a video about us.
Yeah.
Oh,
there we go. There you go. Well,
But anyway, I
we feel
wanted
blessed
to-
that we survived when we look at
Yeah.
these babies, and that's kind of how it's good to end it. That we feel really blessed.
Absolutely. Well, so long everybody, and thank Renee and Cheryl here
Bye.
for so long.